Hello! From the Next Reels Film Board, this is Tommy Handsome with an important announcement. The following podcast includes movie audio clips that contain unbleeped profanity. Such profanity may include damn, hell, nuts, butter, McGee, doodle, Captain Fuck, and toot toot, here comes the diarrhea parade. Listening discretion is advised.
Welcome to Trailer Rewind, a monthly conversation about movies you may have missed in theaters that are now available to watch at home on streaming services. Every month we dig into the archives and watch a film that Pete and Andy talked about in their trailer picks. We watch it and have a very spoilery conversation about it. Today we're talking about Don't Think Twice. This was Pete's pick from May 26th, 2016. Today is September 13th, 2018, and Don't Think Twice is available to stream on Netflix. Before we go any further, we do want to encourage you to explore our ever-expanding back catalog for this show and its sibling shows over at thenextreel.com. Over there, Pete and Andy have escaped the apes and are about to be starting their 1968 crime series. And the film board is being hunted down by The Predator, which is also starring Keegan-Michael Key, who is featured in Don't Think Twice. Right. If you haven't checked out that film board episode yet, be sure to download it and give it a listen. And you can find all of this and even more over at thenextreel.com. So, JJ, I wanted to explore sort of the path that these films take when Pete and Andy pick them as a trailer, and they'll talk about the release date and, you know, how excited they are to get out to see them in theaters. And I wonder often, well, did this make it to theaters? How long was it in theaters? Because we're discovering it here on streaming. So I did a little research and found that this one specifically had its premiere at South by Southwest on March 13th, 2016, and went on to screen at the Tribeca Film Festival in April 16th of 2016 and had its theatrical release July 22nd. And so it's opened on one screen in New York, did sort of that limited release, but raked in $90,126 on that one screen.
Wow, that's a lot.
It broke the 2016 per-screen record that had been set just the week prior by Woody Allen's Cafe Society.
Which probably did the same thing, right? Just opened on one screen. Okay,
just on the one. It went on to be released in 175 theaters and was in theaters for 129 days and had a total domestic gross of $4.4 million, and then later that year in December is when it got its DVD release. So this one tracked a pretty standard small independent film, release, limited release, expands to a small number of theaters across the country, makes a couple million, and about 6 months later you can pick it up on DVD or streaming services. So I think this was a case of, if you weren't in one of those big cities, this was not a film that was going to be available to you to go see, no matter how big of a fan you may be. With only 175 screens, probably not playing in a city near you unless you're near a large metropolitan area.
Yeah, and I remember seeing the trailer, but I never thought it was ever available to me to go see in the theater. I don't remember that being impossible.
Yeah, it's one that I do recall. The trailer, I remember Pete talking about it, saying he was excited that it was going to be a Keegan-Michael Key thing at first, and then saw that it turns out it has a story with a little bit of heart, and seeing that it was written and directed by Mike Birbiglia, that he thinks is, a really funny guy. He's done a couple other films, has been on NPR, has a working relationship with Ira Glass, who was a producer on Don't Think Twice. And Andy said he liked the feel of the trailer and liked the characters and their search for something greater, which I think gets us into what this movie is really about. Because I think it could be a little off-putting for some people when you get something that's insidery about a specific entertainment industry. In this case, we're looking at an improv comedy troupe. If you're not a comedian, if you don't have theatrical friends, you may think, well, I don't really connect with this world. These people are funny.
But everybody knows Weekend Live.
Weekend Live. I did see an interview with Mike Birbiglia, and he said that he was very concerned that Lorne Michaels was going to sue him because of Weekend Live, and
because of his depiction of Lorne
so he
Michaels?
Was on
as Tim something so he was other? So he was talking with Seth Meyers about this, and said,
had talked with Seth about this idea for the movie and said, do you think Lauren's going to be, upset? Is he going to sue me? And Seth said to Mike, he's not going to see your movie.
Seth would be the one that would know. That's for sure.
Exactly. But it does, everybody is familiar with Saturday Night Live. So you have a weekend live show. It's the big, show that comedians aspire to be on.
Well, and they even use the font.
Yes. Oh,
and I mean, like the photos,
everything tells you.
It was very clear. And then I was joking about Tim being Lorne, but I mean, they even tried to sort of not mock, but mug his personality a little bit.
Yes. Oh, yes.
In this sort of subdued and really
low key,
sort of
yes,
a little bit irreverent,
yes.
but totally off the wall.
Yeah.
So,
what did you think of this? Did it deliver what you expected with this type of film?
So usually when I come to a trailer rewind movie, I don't really know much about it. But this one I had some expectations with it, I guess, on the front end because I had seen trailers for it. And I don't consider myself to be a particularly funny person, but I do follow improv. There was a time when I was in high school where I probably 3 out of every 4 weeks in a month, I would go to an improv comedy joint in Minneapolis at a place called the Limelight Theater where they did comedy sports. And I did that so much that improv became kind of something that I was just a fan of. I've never done it myself, again, because I don't particularly consider myself funny, but I'm aware of sort of that lifestyle. And some of the people in that troupe too, even from Minneapolis, did make a little bit of a name for themselves, not on Weekend Live, but in film and whatnot. So it was interesting to me to take in this movie because I'm a fan of what they do. And I think that interestingly, when you watch this movie, it's really about the lives. It's definitely not about the comedy. And that's something that was a little bit confusing for me in that there wasn't anything that was particularly funny in the movie, but it wasn't meant to be. And even the sketches that they wrote for the purpose of telling the dramatic story in this movie weren't necessarily particularly funny. And I think that was kind of the point, really, is that improv and the subculture that they're living in this improv world is not meant necessarily just for the laughs. It's meant for the group. They talk about that with the rules of improv and when they open the movie and stuff like that. So in general, the movie was a little bit confusing to me as an audience member, but I really liked it. I really thought it was a very interesting dramedy. With some opportunity for laughs, if laughs come easy for you. Otherwise, the drama in the film was really, really interesting to me. And I found myself actually getting sort of tricked into the suspense quite a bit. I was along for the emotional human ride with the movie most of the time. Whenever they were going to have a difficult scene or a difficult confrontation with another person in this film, I found that my heartbeat was actually going up with them. And I think that's what you want from a drama. So I was happy with those aspects of it. In general, I'm not sure how I feel about the movie. I don't know who I'd recommend it to. I think only people that really like stand-up or really like comedy are objectively fans of those things too, because it's a small film about the human nature of performers. And I think while that's great and fun to watch, I don't know how many people are actually going to enjoy taking that in. Did you feel similarly about that?
Well, yes. I think the cast of this film can be a bit deceptive because you have recognizable faces and names. So if you're going to cast, Keegan-Michael Key, that people knew from Key and Peele, and Gillian Jacobs from Community, and then if you're
that's what she's
from Community. So you've got some big names from big TV shows that were really popular. You also have Kate Micucci, who has been on, I think Comedy Central has been on a couple of shows, podcasts. So a lot of, names that you are going to expect to laugh at. Mike Birbiglia as well, stand up. And you get a story that is really punches you in the gut, I think, with a story about human condition, about the struggles of aspiration, of reaching perhaps beyond your grasp and seeing the struggles and frustrations of people that have committed to something that they are passionate about and not reaching the level of success that they are hoping for, and what choices they ultimately have to make, and as they reflect on where they are in their lives and what possible paths they can take is not something that you're going to be laughing at. There are humorous moments in the.
Did you laugh though? What was there a joke that you laughed at in particular?
Some of the improv. I wouldn't say laughing out loud uproariously. Some good chuckles, I think, in some of the improv pieces, because it reminds me of shows like Whose Line Is It Anyway, where or if you've been to comedy sports, you recognize some of these setups, and just looking at them on the spot, run with something, that it's not going to be the scripted comedy where it's going to be set up punchline and payoff. It's that in the moment reactionary humor. So it's a different type of comedy that I can enjoy. So I did find those moments humorous, but not big laugh moments. No.
I mean, that's how I felt about it too. I felt like actually that the comedy was a little bit watered down on purpose to give us more of the human drama that you were talking about.
Hi, I'm Sam.
Miles. I'm Bill.
Allison.
Lindsay.
Jack.
And we are the Commies. So everything you see tonight is going to be improvised. And this show is really all about you guys. So we want to know, has anybody out here had a particularly hard day?
And something actually hard, not like your roommate ate your yogurt.
It was still shitty when you ate my yogurt, Miles.
Go ahead.
I'm looking for an apartment, and it sucks.
Why specifically does it suck?
The only one I can afford has the bathroom in the kitchen.
Hi, great.
Hi.
Okay, so as you can see, we have there's 2 bedrooms.
Lovely.
Here is the kitchen.
Nice.
There's a beautiful bathroom.
Is that a toilet?
Yes, that is. The toilet is in the kitchen. Yes.
And
Yes.
who are they?
They are. They are orphans. They are orphans.
Did you say orphans?
Yes, the apartment comes with orphans.
Oh.
Yes.
Does the landlord mind if I paint?
Well, you can't paint the orphans. No, but you can paint the walls.
This is the
yes.
place I was telling you about, David. It has a lot of character.
Hello, Melinda. Good to
This
see you.
is my husband.
Stanley, a
I
pleasure to meet
love
you.
it.
Oh, it's great. Hey, well, guys, this is it. It's going to sell today. You got to go for it. It's going to sell today.
I'll take it.
Oh, no, I'm going to take
No,
it.
we'll pay 30% of your asking.
Oh, well, I'll pay 50% of asking.
We'll pay 100% of your
Well,
asking.
I'll pay $2 million for this apartment.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
What
yeah.
makes you want this apartment so badly?
It's the orphans. I want to raise them.
Yeah, this is, as I had seen this, this is the second time I've seen it, because the first time I just really didn't know what to make of it. So an opportunity to revisit it, because at first I was wondering why this film felt so depressing to me the first time I watched it, expecting a comedy and getting something that's more serious. And then the second time knowing the type of story it is, and then saying, okay, let me really key into what these emotional arcs are of these characters, because it's really a story about, each member of the troupe sort of has different paths they take, but I think one of the key pieces is about, is it possible for somebody to really be a gracious friend when someone you're close with or working with is successful in a way that you want to be, and ultimately you realize you can't. That's not you. That's not your talent or your skill. And how do you deal with that disappointment and frustration? And to see how each of these characters sort of in the troupe resolve that, because one of them leaves, how is the group going to react? Do they, they're because they all want the same thing, and they're hoping they can ride his coattails there. And when that is not a possibility, they have to really reflect on who they are and what they're going to do. And to me, that was a more enjoyable, second viewing to really examine each of these characters and their responses to this.
I'm reminded of Felony when we talk about this is far less sort of intense in its drama, but in the fact that no one's really an antagonist. There's no one who's a villain in this movie. There's just a whole lot of people who are having a whole lot of difficulty being human and dealing with the human aspects of success and failure.
Yes, exactly. And even with Jack, Keegan-Michael Key, who ultimately, gets the call to audition for Weekend Live, gets cast, and then, that's the dream that everybody's wanted. And then realizing that that's just as hard work, if not harder work. And then there's the moment where he goes into Tim's office to talk about, possibly bringing on, some of his friends as writers, and being told, well, you're not that pure talent. You're not that, and you're somebody that maybe is better writing for themselves, and sort of being cut down a peg of, you're on this show, but you're not the best of the best. You're not all that, and you're going to have to continue working to keep it here. And he gets cut out of a sketch, he's told.
Right.
And
right at that moment.
Right at that moment. And then, he's got to plumb the depths of his creativity, and it leads up to like this critical confrontation where he creates a sketch based on an improv piece that we see earlier on in the show, which, he's got to come up with something. So, our group did this, and now he's going to use that, which completely offends the rest of the group, because that's like this violation of what improv is all about. And I think character Bill says, we've been replaced by Ben Stiller, because it's you got to write a sketch for Ben Stiller. What do you do? This worked for us. I'm going to steal this. And to see, again, you've got the group that wants the dream, but we're even seeing from that other side of reaching the dream doesn't mean it's, this golden path. It's still the hard work, and, exceedingly hard work for Jack. But he's content with that type of work. I think that's the piece we get from him is he's seen that as the next progression in his career, and maybe it's more work than he expected, but I think he comes to terms with that, to say, okay, well, this is where I am now, and I'm going to have to work hard here just like I did before, but that's how I'm going to keep myself moving forward, is I continue to the next challenge, and I'll work that and go from there. And I think that, if we were to extend this story, he would be that guy that, maybe is a player on there, works his way up, and, maybe 5-6 years down the road, leaves Weekend Live to go become a movie star in some comedies with, maybe some moderate success.
That's the idea. But the two sketches we saw of him were not funny.
No.
I mean, the ticket taker, which becomes like this iconic character that people are asking for, is not funny at all.
No.
Which his improv troupe agrees with and comments on all the time. They're like, that's not really funny.
It sounds like it should be funny.
Right?
It sounds like it should be funny, but it's not. Yes.
No, I don't even get the joke.
No.
But I think that's the point. But the other one, they stole the orphans in the bathtub sketch that came out of spontaneity within the improv thing, was much more funny on the improv stage than it was when done on Weekend Live. So
yes,
I understand you forecasting that he's going to become successful. However, his performance is going to have to increase significantly. He's going to need some better writing to be able to jump up. Well, maybe there's this little show. What was it on Comedy Central? Key and Peele. He might be on that. That show's pretty good.
Maybe on something like that.
Maybe he could Maybe he could go on that show. Yeah, no. I agree. And I think what it does a great job of, and I there's no reason for me to be critical of the comedy for any reason, because it's not the purpose of the movie. But I think that those pieces are really interesting. And I think really taking a look at how everyone examines where they are in life from beginning of this movie to the end, and how they define success, I think is something that's really beautiful in this movie, regardless of its size.
Yeah, as I watched it the second time, trying to sort of map out the character arcs, the story, how is this film really structured together? Because again, as we said, there's not a main, antagonist and protagonist. We've got an ensemble cast working together, and then ultimately starting to splinter and fracture. So we don't have, typical, rising action to the big conflict. If anything, the big conflict is sort of when the group has that breaking apart, that's driven by Jack's success. But, before that, even we start to see, all the setups for everybody and who they are. We see moments with, Allison, doodling and drawing in her book. And then even when we get to the point where they're working on submitting a writing package to Weekend Live, that Jack can, sort of maybe, get to somebody. Even then, she's talking about the visual elements and wanting to, maybe include some illustrations. And with, with her submission, which you think about, that makes no sense. You've got a sketch comedy show. Why would you be providing illustrations? It's all words. But seeing those bits and pieces, and, she even tells a story about when she's explaining what her book is about, which is, this girl from this small town that's a sculptor, and the whole town gets together and gets money so she can go to the big, sculpting, college or whatever. And then she gets there and she never sculpts again because she's so intimidated. And you see that as this reflection.
Autobiographical.
Yes, very autobiographical, and gives us a lot of insight into Allison and what she's going through. So when we ultimately see her drop the, manuscript for the book in the mail, she's finally gotten to that point. She's moving on to, that's her path. Probably it's moving away from the improv troupe to embrace what it is that she's probably most passionate about, because we see it throughout the story again and again. And that's sort of her core, where she comes from. So it's the logical progression for her. And she spends a little bit of time in the commune there, but ultimately, no, she's not going to be there for a long time. And then with Bill, we get his relationship with his father, which at first really threw me off, because we have this scene with Bill and his talking with his dad after, one of the improv shows, and his dad asks him if he's, still selling hummus at the grocery store.
Right. And he lies.
And he lies because, again, doesn't want to, admit that, well, in his father's eyes, is he successful or not? Right. And we have that dynamic. And I thought, what's the payoff going to be for this story? And that's the one character arc I think I struggle with perhaps the most, because then his father's in an accident, which takes him out of the story. And I thought, is this just...
Well, how do you struggle with it? Why is it a struggle for you? I think for me, it was consistent with the serious drama that was actually being portrayed in this film. I actually liked it.
Well, I guess the plotting just felt awkward to me, of introduce dad, have him basically written out because he's in an accident. We have... I guess I could just see the pieces the second time of, dad mentions, he's bought this space and he's going to turn it into like a cosmetic store or something like that. He's got this space, and then, he's in an accident, out of commission. So then when he passes away, then we now have a space for the commune to move into, because they've been kicked out of their prior location. I guess it just seemed a little too convenient for the story, and it works for the story, but it didn't give me enough as far as Bill as a character and growth, and him. There is some stuff with, I guess, the resolution with his relationship with his father, of not feeling embarrassed or awkward about what he does, that to not be seen as a disappointment, but to then, take something that his father, gives him and to do something with it that's, more constructive. He talks about being a space for the community, for kids that are interested in theater or comedy. So of giving back to the community, and it's there. It felt a little bit too forced, I guess, in terms of getting the pieces there.
Well, and you bring up a good point, because it definitely is convenient. It's definitely forced. It's definitely a constructed part of the story, especially when you look at the punchline that they use for it throughout the film, which is the slurring of his almost dying father saying thank you, right?
Yes.
So you get that sense. That's the interesting sort of irony about this film, is that it's all written. There really there doesn't appear to be things that are improv, even though it is a film about the subculture of improv comedy and the grind of being a comedian that starts in improv and moves on. But there doesn't appear to be much ad-libbing, because all of those elements are so constructed within the story. I don't have a problem with them, because I think that's the nature of this drama, and that's why they put it there. But I definitely see your point about it feeling forced. If you don't want to be taken on this journey, then you're going to be frustrated with that, for sure.
So I want to talk about sort of one of our key characters, and I think she's probably one of the most interesting, which is the character of Sam. Because we see most, I think we get a lot into her character because of her relationship with Jack, but we also see a lot more of her practicing her craft as they're going through the prep for the audition. She's the one. So when we meet the commune, she's the one that steps forward, to ask the audience. She's the leader to say, okay, has anybody had a particularly bad day? And that kicks things off. And so that response from an audience member, it's to her. So how is she going to lead the group in that? And she is the one that is, for me, the most, I don't want to say puzzling, but she's into the improv comedy and she is content to stay there. And she tells Jack at one point that, being invited to join the commune was the greatest day of her life. And she's happy to stay there.
I gotta tell you something.
Yeah.
I didn't.
What are you going on? What is it?
I didn't go to my weekend live audition. I just didn't go.
Why? I mean, why? Why wouldn't you go?
I don't know. I freaked out. Life is so short, and I feel like you have to do things that you believe in, or what is the point of all of this?
Right, yeah.
And I watched that show, and it's not for me. I like my life how it is right now. I like the commune.
I know, Sam. I know.
The day you guys asked me to join the commune was the greatest day of my life.
It was the greatest day of my life. But honey, you can't do improv forever, okay? It ends, all right? And I don't want it to end either, but it will. It just will. We've got to jump to the next lily pad.
But I like this lily pad.
Honestly, you should be on this show. You'd be better than me. Okay?
Well, and if you remember, going back, you think about when Miles, Mike Birbiglia's character, is telling a story, I think, to one of his students that he's trying to get into bed, about her past. He's giving her backstory and saying that she was this prima ballerina type person who had a full ride to school. And he says that didn't work out. But then she found this. It's kind of consistent with her character, right? That she would actually have the opportunity, or had been through this opportunity, to be at the upper echelon of some artistic profession. But she's learning about herself over time that no matter how good she is, which she's already expressed in one medium, and now has come here, and she has the opportunity to audition for Weekend Live, the Saturday Night Live mock-up, and she chooses not to because she's found her own happiness. I think that's a profound statement, and I think it's consistent with her character. I think it's really interesting, and her journey about finding her own definition of success in this movie is probably the most interesting character journey for me in watching this movie.
Oh, definitely, because even there are several points throughout the movie where she'll be talking with the other characters and say, well, why are you worried about that? Or you've got the commune. I mean, what better thing there?
This is the thing for her. This is her Shangri-La.
Yes, it is her Shangri-La, because for her, she's achieved everything and she's perfectly content. And the thing that I am asking myself is, Jack tries to lure her back to say, to try to get her another audition, that convince her this is the next logical step. And for her, she's, he says she's better than him. And I wonder if she were to audition, is she really the greatest of all of them? And she's content with sort of the simplest version of the, dream of being a comedian, is to be content with just the improv, which I guess is a little bit more risky. You're putting yourself out there without a script, but really to a really small audience, and for things that don't endure, because the entire nature of improv is once it's done, it's gone and forgotten. It's not preserved anywhere. So I wonder if, we see her prepping her Katharine Hepburn, voice, all of those things a lot of time, and her,
she's in deep,
is she really the best of them? And is it okay for her to not push and challenge herself to that, to just say, but it's about my happiness. And if that's what makes her happy, and then taking over, class for Miles to actually, start teaching people, if she feels fulfilled, even if there's potential for her to be the greatest of all of them, but if that's what keeps her happy, if that's what her contentment is we accept that and say, yes, that is a great thing for someone to just find what makes them happy and just accept that?
Well, I love that sentiment, and I'm on her side. I'll say that, just for my own personal belief structure. But outside of that, I think the interesting thing about this movie is that it shows us all the different levels. It shows us, how life events can knock you completely off kilter with, Bill's father's death, or it can show you how you reach an ultimate compromise and you do what Miles does and actually moves into a completely different lifestyle with an old flame and a child that she has. And then you see the stories of success where someone's doing exactly what they wanted and they get that, and that, it's not 100% happiness there either. It's still a challenge. And then you have Sam, who finds her own new definition of success, and then you also have this other character. She actually gets this different type of success where she's now come in and is now going to be a writer, but she was trying to be an actress before. I think it's really interesting that you see the spectrum of different sort of human aspiration, which is the word you used. And I think that's great for this here to describe what all these people in performance were trying to do and how they all are sort of challenged to find out what their own definitions of success are. I think that's really the amazing thing about this movie, and it does it in a really great way in this sort of subcultural realm of improv comedy. That the Tammy is the character who becomes the writer, or Lindsay is the name of the character.
Lindsay.
Tammy Saker is the actress who plays her.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is they find success and define it in different ways. And there's one, Miles, I think, is the one that is, keeps telling the story of, he auditioned way back when and he was just inches away from getting it. It's sort of a running joke, within the group of, he had his chance and he was really close and maybe he'll get that chance again. But he's overlooking his biggest success, because once Jack makes it, Miles points out, look, I taught you. And I thought,
the teacher,
why can't Miles celebrate? He is the talent when it comes to teaching. He wants the glory for himself. But if you can take somebody and teach them to be good enough, then make that your thing.
That's glorious.
Make that your thing.
Glorious.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But he doesn't, because he wants that success for himself, and he's not looking. He's looking over the fact, and he even walks away from the classes. He hands them over to Sam, and I thought, you're doing something well, and now he's going to find his meaning and his joy someplace else.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And I describe that as an ultimate compromise, but I think, I don't mean that in a negative way. I actually mean that in sort of a sort of giving up the fight, deciding to swim with the waves as opposed to fighting against them, and finding something where you can be good and you can be supported and loved in a way that you maybe never expected to before. I think that's a special part of the story as well.
Just relax.
Where were you?
I was out here.
Doing what?
I didn't want to embarrass myself in front of my coworkers.
What does that mean?
I got the writing job on Weekend Live.
Motherfucker! They gave it to you?
You didn't even tell us you were submitting. That's so weird.
We showed you our packet. We showed you our shit, and you didn't even say a
I
thing.
didn't think I was going to get it, and I was embarrassed.
That is so
I
shame.
didn't
And you're not even gonna last 5 minutes there, because you have no work ethic.
Bill's right.
You've taken 9 years, and you still haven't finished your doodle book.
I think what kills me is that you don't even know what it's like to work. You've had everything in your life handed to you on a silver platter.
I didn't get handed this. I turned in a writing submission, and it was good. No one wants to say this, Miles. You don't have it. You were never inches away from anything.
Fuck you, Lindsay.
You won't, because I'm not 22 and I'm not your student.
Getting back to, as you said earlier, you wouldn't know who you would recommend this to. I mean, we talked into sort of what this movie has to say about, perhaps in the creative area, but I think that is this something that can translate to something meaningful for people that are in a career path where they're feeling frustrated or unfulfilled, or they have some ambition that they're constantly falling short of, and it's creating misery in their life. Is this a therapeutic movie? Is this something that can help people reflect on their own sort of situation and whether or not they're content, and looking at, as a lot of these characters do, finding something else that's in there that maybe they should embrace, that can bring them that joy that they're seeking sort of in a misdirected way?
I think you would hope so. I would think you would hope that would be the purpose of the film, but I actually kind of don't think that's possible. I think it's rooted so deeply in this performance show business subculture that I think it's going to be tough unless you have a love or an appreciation for those things. And that's why I kind of started my story talking about how I understand and really like the sort of improv comedy culture. If you don't like it, this movie is going to be really tough for you. If you don't understand the sacrifices that these folks are making, or you wouldn't feel comfortable making those sacrifices, or your own sacrifices you don't find a parallel in that, then this movie is going to feel very thin to you. It's not going to feel deep. It's going to feel like these people should get a job, that kind of thing. They should stop whining, because there's a whole lot of that. I mean, there's a whole lot of sad sack about the fact that I didn't get picked for the baseball team. And that's a metaphor here. But I think it's going to be difficult for those people. That being said, as we're talking about it here, I think, we are a podcast about film and about people who love film and who love show business and love this kind of culture. So I think anyone who listens to our show and our podcast might find that drama to be heartwarming and might be able to take that leap that you're talking about and say, the struggles that I'm having in my career, though they might be not about show business, I might be able to redefine success in my own way along the spectrum. So as long as you're listening to this show, I think, or if you care about show business or about movies, and especially about comedy, then this is probably going to be a good movie for you.
So I guess the takeaway is it's not a comedy, but if you enjoy the field of comedy beyond just pure entertainment, but sort of appreciate the craft and art of constructing comedy, this drama may be a story that's interesting for you to take this journey with these characters.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. You have to have an inclination towards the nuts and bolts of what it takes to be involved with show business. But I think you're right. I think if you love comedy and you love putting on a show, this is going to be a lot about a career arc in that realm.
Okay, so that makes it perhaps a bit of a challenge to rank, because usually when ranking, we think about just what's something that it's going to be an enjoyable. For me, I have to balance out those two pieces of what's just pure entertainment that I can put on any time and just be purely entertained and have a great time and take that journey. And then there are other films that are entertaining, not something you're going to watch as frequently, but for me, I like to look at the meaning of it. Is there some weight to what it has to say? Is it saying something important and doing it in an artful way that is entertaining, but not something that you're going to put on just, every so often? So where does this fall? And for me, it ended in a really odd place.
For me too.
Yeah. I think it's because I can't think of another film quite like this where I would say, oh, it should be right alongside that film, because it's similar. The tone of this one makes it really a challenge for me, because it's not, I don't want to say it's a chore to watch this movie, but it's not necessarily a pleasant experience, because as I said, I think sometimes it could be, it's a bit depressing and challenging. Although
said a gut punch. I think that's accurate about
so it ended up for me, it's slightly above halfway. It's at 63%. Okay. So it's at 123 out of 336. And it ends up in this really weird spot. It is in between at 122, one of my favorite movies from the 80s. I just recently rewatched this. I think it was just this past weekend with the family for family movie night. Night of the Comet. I don't know if you...
Oh, I love it.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Okay.
Great movie. terrifying for me, and I don't like scary movies, but I love that movie.
Exactly.
Such a great film.
And then number 124, which was, I want to say it may have been a trailer pick. I remember Andy maybe talking about this, a movie called The Endless, which is a story.
I don't know that
it's the story of two brothers that were, when they were younger, they were in this sort of communal cult, and they, for lack of a better word, escaped, and are struggling to make it sort of out in the outside world and go back to just visit for a day.
Totally weird place for this movie.
Yes. So it's just, really, really strange.
So how do you feel about that?
Well,
I mean, 63% in that spot. How do you feel about it?
Well, that's about right, because I put this as like a 3-star, and that's sort of right around in that range where it's in this weird middling ground where there's a mishmash of things around it that are enjoyable. Some that I will watch again and again, like Night of the Comet. Some that I may only watch one or two more times, The Endless, and probably not for a while, because it's a challenging film. It has some interesting things to say, and I think Don't Think Twice really mirrors those two things. There's sequences that I could probably take out of there and say, yeah, this is entertaining. I could watch this. Some of the improv pieces, not uproariously causing me to laugh, but still entertaining, versus some sequences like when the entire team just really throws each other under the bus and blows up at each other is not a pleasant scene to watch, just because everybody's heart is right out there. So for me, it's probably the appropriate place. I don't know that I would have said, oh yeah, this is the perfect place, but seeing where it ends up, it feels right to me.
I have to tell you, it was really difficult for me to rank too. So I think it's really interesting, and I want to tell you a little bit about the journey. I actually ranked it probably 6 times because I wasn't comfortable with where it landed. The first 2 times I ranked it exactly the same way, and it came up in 63% for me as well. But the place where it came up, I just wasn't comfortable with where it ended up. It ended up between Contagion at 69 for me and Hail Caesar at 70. and that didn't make any sense to me. And that's like Steven Soderbergh, who's my favorite director. And then, the Coen brothers. And I was just like, this doesn't make any sense. So I had to keep ranking it. I did it twice. It ended up there twice. But then as I went back around, the first, the midway point, the first battle for me on Flickchart with any movie right now is Panic Room, and it's a polarizing film for me. I don't think it's a great movie, but I also I think it's kind of interesting. That's kind of why it's there. But so what happens to me is that when I go back through this, I say, okay, let's throw it in and see where it ends up if it doesn't end up there. And where it ends up after that then is right in the middle of a whole bunch of the Trailer Rewind movies that I like, but I can't put higher in the movie ranges, right?
Yes.
So and this is where I leave it sitting. And now this is at 27%. And I don't feel 27% about this movie. This isn't a 1.5 star or 2-star movie for me. It's better than that. But it's below Odd Thomas. I think I like Odd Thomas more. And it's above The Congress, right?
Okay.
Those are 2 Trailer Rewind movies that we went. But so it just shows you how Flickchart kind of it makes everything skew a little bit. I'm not comfortable with it in that high range, but I'm not really comfortable with it down here either. So I'll probably say it's a 2.5 star or a 3-star movie as well. I liked it, but I think it belongs in this lower range for me only because it's a smaller movie. It's not as complex as some other things that I've seen. In general, the filmmaking aspects of it were not really what the film was about. There was one particular shot that I loved, but other than that, you're really focused on the story and those things that you mentioned about it being a little bit constructed, a little bit forced at times. You definitely recognize that in this film. I think it's a great project and a fun movie to watch if you care about the movies, but that's why it ends up down in this lower spot for me. It says it's 27. I'll give it 3 stars and a like, though.
All right, so we're both in the same place then at 3 stars. Just where it fits into our flick chart is going to sort of vary greatly because for me it's in the top half. So what's interesting about
it's so hard to rank.
What's interesting about my chart is for the past few films, my middle seems to fluctuate what it's going up against, but if I put it into the top half, it's hitting dodgeball. So it's hitting what I call the dodgeball block because
that is a block.
I just love that movie. So Ben Stiller on that, and it's just it's such a great comedy that's a movie I think if you're going to be above this, it's got to be a great piece of art,
4 or 5 stars,
or just just something because. And so right now, a lot of these movies are hitting this dodgeball block, which I think is pushing stuff, which is keeping some things collected to the middle, which is fine. And eventually something's going to hit a break point and things will shift and sift out differently. But
Sure.
That's where we are. But I think, yes, a 3-star film makes sense. 3 stars and a like for this movie.
Yep.
Not necessarily for everybody, but I think, as you said, for people that are going to listen to a movie podcast that enjoy hearing discussion and a little bit of behind the scenes and just how things get assembled, and whether that's the entertainment industry or filmmaking or even just, stand-up comedy, this is going to be the type of film for you, knowing that you're not walking and expecting big laughs.
Let me quickly talk about the shot that I love too.
Yes.
It was at the end of the film. I struggled to notice a lot of the filmmaking aspects of the film throughout, and I think that's probably a credit to the filmmakers in that they were letting the story speak for itself. But as the commune sends Keegan-Michael Key away, he gets into a limo to head back to the city to go back to his weekend live shift. And as it drives away, the other members of the commune are on a porch, and there is a static shot that allows the limo to enter the shot where you have all of the members of the commune visible in the shot. The limo goes through, the camera does not move. The limo moves through the frame, covering up the entire frame, so obscuring it with the car together. You don't see any of the members of the commune as Jack, this person who has now taken over this success and won his spot on Weekend Live, drives away. You are sort of blocked by the vision of his limo taking him to his job. And then as the camera doesn't move, it allows the car to leave the screen, to exit the frame on the left, and you're left with the commune there on the porch, just as they were before. I think that's really smart filmmaking. Mike Birbiglia was the director on this, which I think is great. The lead, the DP on it, his name was Joe Anderson. And I think, again, didn't notice the camera work a lot through the film, but that kind of shot I think is super smart and really kind of goes with the whole aspects of the story too. That kind of thing. Again, no camera movement, but it's a way to tell the story visually. And I was very impressed with that shot.
You know what? I don't know that I was paying attention to that because, again, not a film where stylistically it's drawing attention to itself. I think a lot of pieces, I think when when they're in there with the commune, the camera's moving, sort of in the stage area between them, very fluid to sort of that, I guess, documentary style, in there with them.
Handheld steady.
But then a lot of other pieces, just, I would say, standard setup. Here's your master, and here's you're shooting from this side and getting your coverage and doing what the basics of what you need to do. But
I think I smell a third viewing for you.
But yeah,
go back and watch that shot. It's
go back and watch the end. I will have to do that because I
rewind back. That's really close to the end of the movie.
And I love when there's something that does that because it's, again, visually reinforcing sort of the theme of that moment, which may not be something that everybody pays attention to, but when you highlight something like that, again, shows sort of the artfulness of doing something well, and paying attention even to little details can just help create those resonances in what the content is done and how the form is getting it there. So, I think we've really not thought twice about this film. Maybe we've thought 3 or 4 times about this. We've broken the rules of improv.
Improving our show the whole way.
Exactly. But I think it's time to wrap it up and finish our conversation because the movie has ended and so is our conversation. It's time to look at what's next. And we've got the film board, The Predator, up around the corner. And I am
The Predator, big movie.
Yeah, and I'm trying to keep an eye out for what else, because we're going to start creeping into Oscar territory, I think, with releases starting to come up in the fall. So trying to keep my eyes out, but it seems like we're in a bit of a lull this time of year. I did get out and see Black Klansman, trying to predict what the Oscar picks are going to be and trying to catch some of those. But there's nothing flying high on my radar right now, but that does mean I got to catch up on a bunch of TV that I've been slacking off on. So that's some of my viewing upcoming. What about you? Anything highlights of what you've got on your viewing schedule coming up?
Well, I am super focused on The Predator. I'm going to see it probably early tomorrow. I was going to try to do a late night show tonight, but I think I'm going to see it early tomorrow. And I'm super excited for Sterling K. Brown and Keegan-Michael Key and Olivia Munn. I'm a huge Olivia Munn fan from back in her G4 days. I think it looks. This totally wasn't on my radar, and I'm a huge fan of the original Predator movie. But I think it looks clever. And it's Shane Black. I think it could be really interesting, and I'm hoping they take the story to a little bit of a new depth, and then keep the sort of light action, the light feeling, a light approach to action, because I think that's some of the beauty of that Predator. And I mentioned last month that the original Predator movie was the first rated R movie I ever saw. So I feel like I'm doing a little bit of a bookend here on this one to see this new one.
All right. And for all our listeners out there, if you haven't already, please head over to iTunes and give us a rating and a review. It helps other film fans discover us. And as we discover them and they discover us, we build our own little group, sort of like the commune. It's like finding a new home until someone hits it big and moves on. Tommy Handsome's got his film that, he may be that big star 3 years down the road, and we'll be like, hey, Tommy, how about throwing some our way?
That's right.
But the best thing that you can do is watch a movie with a friend and then sit down and have a conversation about it. And if it's one that's been discussed on any of our shows, please let us know. We love hearing from you.
You can even tell us if you've had a particularly bad day.
Exactly. Now, Trailer Rewind is a part of the Next Reel series of podcasts, which is brought to you by a hardworking group of film lovers. And I want to give special thanks to Pete Wright for taking time out of his busy schedule. He's got Film Board. He's got the main series. We've got Sat Mats. He's got a whole slate of things to be dealing with this weekend. And I want to thank him in advance for editing this into a coherent conversation and precisely placing our little audio clips that we've selected from the movie.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you, Pete.
We love you.
Hondo.